All right, today we are gonna go over dumbbell step-ups, such a great exercise for targeting the glutes. So you wanna have a bench that creates roughly a 90-degree angle when your foot is on the bench. So this is pretty good. Anything that's a little bit higher, it's gonna be a little bit more challenging and stability is going to be an issue. A typical bench does do the trick. So when we're starting off with the step-up, you can hold on to one dumbbell, you can hold on to two dumbbells, totally depends on your preferences. I find that if you're starting out and the number one goal is to focus on targeting your glutes, holding on to something with one hand and holding on to one dumbbell in the other hand is typically a good starting point. So, which hand should you hold the dumbbell in? I typically like to go the opposite side of the front planted leg. I find that it creates more balance for me, and there is some research that when you have one leg forward and there's a dumbbell in the other hand, it can create a little bit more activation in the side of your glute, and that's the glute medius. It's a muscle that's pretty small and underdeveloped for a lot of people, so I just typically like that more than holding it on the same side. Play with both variations. It's splitting hairs. It comes down to your preferences. Whatever allows you to progress the best. So I'm gonna start off with my right leg forward. We're gonna grab the dumbbell in my left hand, and then my right hand, we're gonna grab onto something. When we are holding onto something, you don't want to use it to pull you all the way up. It's just there for balance. Because yes, of course, if you want to improve your balance, then don't hold on to anything. Have your hand on your hip and focus on standing up. You can see there's a little bit of wobbliness at the top, right? If your biggest goal is to improve balance, then don't hold on to something. But I would argue that most of your priorities is to grow the glutes. Therefore, you always want to prioritize stability when you are able to. So I'm going to hold on to something to make sure we stay stable, we're not wobbling around, and I can focus on a full contraction on my glutes. So when we come back down, I like to lean forward. When you lean forward, it puts more emphasis on your glutes. You want to try to keep your shin perpendicular to the ground. If you're sitting more upright and your knees coming forward like this, you're going to be targeting your quads a lot more. The front quad here is being targeted way more in comparison to this position. Okay, so that's how we want to perform it on the way down when we are stepping back up. So you can come down and step all the way down if you want. I typically like to just hold position and just make sure that I'm in the same position so each rep looks very similar. When we go to stand back up, we want to push through the bench like we are leg pressing the bench away from us. Slowly stand back up and fully extend your hips at the top so your glutes get a full contraction. When you come back down, slowly come back down and let that foot just touch the ground. Of course, what you want to avoid is pushing off of that back foot. That planted leg for this glute did none of the work when we're pushing off like that. If you have to push off like that, the dumbbell's probably too heavy. All right, so again, we're just gonna focus on that front leg, slowly let that back leg drag behind, come up and squeeze the glute at the top, and then we're gonna hip hinge back, bend the knee at the same time, bending forward and keeping that shin perpendicular to the ground, letting that toe rest on the ground. Nice and slow. Whew, can already feel that. So just show you guys the other side here. Same thing. Keep that leg nice and planted. Hold on to something if your goal is to target the glutes. Lean forward, shin perpendicular to the ground. And for our breathing, we're gonna breathe out when we stand up and breathe back in on the descent, okay? So when you're initiating the movement right here, you gotta breathe in first. Squeeze at the top, hinge back, slowly come down, lean forward, shin perpendicular to the ground, just like that. Make sure you're not pulling yourself up too much with that bar. It's just there for balance and no pushing off like this, okay? Instead, all force is coming from that front planted leg. All the way up, squeeze the glute at the top, and come back down. That's the dumbbell step up, friends.